So next up for our draft preview, we will be doing the Washington Wizards, and they have the number 2 pick right after the Atlanta Hawks. And I think for them, this draft decision will be a lot simpler because they're in the early stages of a rebuild. They also have a lot of guys who don't really fit with their long-term timeline, so they can try to draft somebody who they can kind of build around here. But really, I think the name of the game here is simple. Just get the best player that you like and just get them on your squad.
Yeah, I feel like personally with this Wizards roster, you've got Jordan Poole making some decent money. You kind of just have to hope he's 24, that he'll bounce back from some of those low spots during the season. And then you look at that front court. There are not really any names at that 4 or 5 that you are confident that's. I mean, I guess you have Kyle Kuzma if you want to keep running with him and you can't move on. But he's 28 years old. Timeline isn't perfect at this point with them. But I'm thinking at this point, with the way that it fell and they get that number 2 pick, you can guarantee yourself either Alex Sarr or Donovan Clingan if you're going to address that center spot. And at this point, it's just going to be a battle, right? Of in the pre-draft process, does Alex Sarr look good? Does Donovan Clingan come in and look good? So I feel like whichever one, you're not really going to be able to blame them on who they take. It's just going to be whether or not one of them is better than the other, personally.
Yeah, I think here you have to go with the best player available. Like, when they put like the team needs things up during the draft, their team needs to say everything. They need everything. So,
are you really going to go into the season with Rashawn Holmes at the center or Marvin Bagley or even Kyle Kuzma playing the 5 at some point? Like, none of these guys are your daily starting center, in my opinion. And I don't think you can just go into a season with just a guy at your starting position if you're trying to improve. I could see them maybe, like, if you want to go address and add just a best overall player, if they want to go a guard potentially, you could maybe move Jordan Poole over to like the shooting guard position because Coulibaly is 6'8", so he could technically be big enough and long enough defensively to maybe run that small forward position. So if they think somebody like a Rob Dillingham or Stephon Castle or Nikola Topic can be that starting point guard for the rest of their way as during their career, maybe you end up just basically shifting those guys up a position and running with that. But I just feel like you have the pick of the litter of the best big men in this class. I don't think you can just leave them on the board when that's one of your biggest needs, because this is a team that gave up over 120 points a game. And a lot of that is just giving up buckets at the rim because the rim protection is just awful. So Kuzma's an offensive guy. He can play some defense with his length and speed on the perimeter, but you need to get somebody like a Clingan who can sit in the paint and just chain shots, I think.
With Clingan, right, his comp is like a Walker Kessler, kind of. I think he passes a little better than Kessler. But that's someone who he'll probably come in and have a similar impact to. Is that worth a number 2 pick, or could you trade down and get something else? Or could you trade down or just take, like, I think I'm more in favor of taking a guard, personally. I think the guards in this year's class are kind of the strength of it. Like, there's more good guards, so I would either trade down and take one, or if I'm really in love with one and I don't think he'll be there much longer, I wouldn't be opposed to I would feel more comfortable taking a guard, knowing that I think their upside is just higher. I just think with Clingan and Sarr, like, those are safe picks and they are areas of need, but I think you will almost be more risking it going into next season with Jordan Poole running the point guard than you would be at Rashawn Holmes and whoever else they have running the center. Like, I think Rashawn Holmes he's not bad, and I think you can add like a player that would bring some defense and free agency to where if you do really want to take a jump this year, I think guard is the best way to do it through the draft.
See, I'm kind of torn too, because on the one hand, I'm like, I feel like you should go for a big, but at the same time, that's like the easiest thing to fill. But I feel like the guards, I don't know. I feel like you almost want to get a big so that way you can try and go after one of the guards or the wings in next year's class, because obviously like these guards are good, but the main thing with them is that they're undersized. And I feel like some of the guards and wings in next year's class have a little bit more versatility. I'm just trying to think like long term more so. But I don't feel like you can really, I feel like if you go for a big, that'll be good, but it won't necessarily move the needle. I know I've said that a lot, but like you'll still have an anchor and that'll give you more of a identity. But at the same time, if you draft a guard, you know, we talk about the struggles with Jordan Poole, but seeing him kind of be in a mentor role and allow, and say they draft Dillingham or they draft like a Collier type of guy, like allowing them to be under his wing, I feel like that would be beneficial for both players, because there are some guys who, you know, they kind of go back to form when they have to be a mentor. But with the Wizards, I feel like also you could draft an undersized guard, but even I just don't think that's going to get you to where you want to be, you know, because we're just like, look at the top players and like, look at the contenders and like, look at who's been like the finals MVP. And even like a guy like Ant, there's more dimensions to him. Like he's 6'5", obviously, but he can do it on both sides of the ball. So I feel like you just want to go for a big, just because the guards aren't necessarily going to change your franchise or be something that you can consistently rely on, if that makes sense. And just where they're at right now.
Okay, so let's go through it a little bit. So who would the pick be? If you're Washington, you're at 2, who's the pick?
I would probably pick Sarr. Kind of like Jake, I feel like it would just come down to who's better. I think I'd probably go Sarr just because he does have a little bit of offensive potential that's a little bit raw, but I think he does have some two-way upside to him, so I'd probably lean to Sarr right now.
Jake, who's the pick?
Yeah, Sarr is a year younger. Pretty much what Branden said. He's got some offensive raw capabilities that could be unlocked at the NBA level, but I also just feel like Donovan Clingan, if they're just set and like we cannot be the worst defensive team in the league in terms of points allowed, I feel like Clingan in this draft class at the front court at that center position, he is the number one person to add if you want to help that out, because you guys say a lot of these guys aren't really needle movers, but I feel like if the Wizards can stop giving up 120 a game, that is a huge difference, because they could score. They're averaging 113 a game, which is nothing to sneeze at. If they could just stop giving up easy buckets and threes, they could at least take the next step forward and not be one of the worst teams in the entire league. So if Clingan's going to come in and help drop that points allowed average, that's going to be a big difference maker, I feel like.
Okay. I think if I'm the Wizards, okay, I know this is a risky pick. Like, don't get me wrong, this is definitely like, if it doesn't work, your job is probably up in a couple of years, depending on how the 2025 draft goes for you. But I think I would go Dillingham, just because I think Jordan Poole, you're paying him all of that money. So I think it's too early to throw a towel in on Poole. I think you have to try to get him to where, like, the amount of money you're paying him, it's almost like you have to build around him. I wouldn't go necessarily that far, but I think you have to try to make it work at least. And I think we've seen him at his best when he was off ball as like a secondary creator, someone who didn't have to always initiate the offense. And I think pairing him with another guard who could take some of the scoring load off of him, the defense won't be able to load up when you have both of them that can both shoot it, both dribble, both pass. And then I think you have a team that, one, can really score the ball. Like, really, like you can't help off anyone. Like, that's a really good offensive team. And then you have defense in the back line with Koulibaly a little bit. You still are missing a big, but I think you can fill that need in free agency, probably cheaper, at least for a stopgap until next year, where I do think there's more. I just think the bigs in next year's class are just as, if not more talented, and there's some really, really good foremen in next year's class. So I think I'll go Dillingham, and I'll try to recreate a little bit of what Golden State had with the little pool party era they had.
Man, this draft is so unpredictable.
I don't know where to go.
It's gonna be crazy. Couple months.
Y'all really go big?
Dude, how can you go into the next season just completely leaving it how it is? Like, I know you're saying
Do
free
you
agency.
want to be good next year?
I think you want to stop giving up 120 points a
I don't think
game.
he'll necessarily be good.
But that's the thing. That's what I'm saying more so. So if you draft a big, you won't be good. But I think if you draft a guard, you still won't be good. But there's a potential for you to be not good, but entertaining. Like
You're
You
not
can
addressing any of your
buy
issues, though.
I
think you are. You don't have a point guard. There is no point guard. Tyus Jones is gone, I think, after this year.
I think my thought process behind it is like, whatever big there still comes in, they're still gonna like.
Someone's, I don't know who, but someone's getting flamed in the comments.
Probably me. But what
Well,
my
something
thing,
explained every episode.
yeah, it doesn't really matter. But my thing is, what's more important in the
Yeah,
league?
no,
To have a good big or to have a good guard? I feel like you can have, like, for example, look at the bigs in the playoffs right now. Besides Jokic, who's really, like, great at the center position? Like, you have
Cat, probably.
Cat, Gobert.
Cat and Gobert is like.
I mean,
Cat is
Cat's a power forward.
I like Cat, but like they were about to trade Cat and Rudy.
But he's technically
they
still a big though, right?
Yeah, he's a big, but I feel like they only fit together. Like they have to kind of be together. Like that only works because they're both on that team. Like
I mean, you've got Chet. You've got, I mean, if you want to throw Miles Turner in that upper echelon, but
like that's what I'm saying. Like I think you can get to the playoffs and be a decent team with like a Miles Turner or
yeah, but they don't have any of those guys.
Derek Lively.
They don't have any of those guys.
They don't.
They
yet.
have the opposite of those
But
guys.
my thing is, do you think Klingon or Saar are one of those guys, or
they
are they
could
gonna
be. You don't know.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think I'm not. I think Saar. I think if you miss on a big, it can like. I think it's worse if that makes sense. Because you could have just signed one. Like you could have just got. Let me see.
But at the same time, if you can just sign one, just go sign one.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's like, I think
Man, I need y'all down to argue during the videos.
Well, it's also that.
Did we
that
cut
same,
the recording? We can keep this game, or
Oh, y'all are sitting back and stuff.
that same logic though applies to like any draft pick. Like what if you don't hit on Dillingham, then it's just a complete waste of a pick because then they don't address their biggest need and it's just a waste of a second overall pick.
But I think guards, when you don't hit, like they're easier to flip. Like there'll always be someone who can kind of talk themselves into a guard. Like with a big, like if a big is bad, they're really bad. Like most of the time, like if you miss on a big, they kind of suck in a way. Like let's see, who's gonna be free agent? So you have, it's like they could go out and get Claxton.
Yeah, but Claxton's probably gonna take what, 20 mil, maybe close to that.
I mean, if you don't want, but like I don't know. I feel like
Also, is Claxton like a guaranteed gonna be gone? Like, don't the Nets, or is he still on the Nets?
he's a free agent.
I think my thought process behind it is like, if you get a big and like you get somebody in next year's draft, then you have kind of somebody that you can already supplement, and you're not just throwing them into a team that's already nothing. Like, and I think if you draft a guard, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but I feel like having a solid player at front court is more important, especially with where they are right now.
Plus, if you take Dillingham and it doesn't work out in the first year, are you just automatically moving on to
No, I
Dylan
think
Harper if you can get him?
no. This is the thing. I think it for sure does not work out in the first year. You take Dillingham. Like guards,
Right, but then you've got Harper, Dillingham, and Poole. So are you just moving on from Poole after that?
I don't think you take Harper. I think next year they'll be bad enough to where they can get a Cooper. They'll have their pick between Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey.
But what if the guards are not working? What if
you
it's
mean?
like,
Or what if the guards are not working? That's the thing with guards. Everybody kind of gives you a mulligan at least from the first year.
yeah,
Like, cause like for example, Scoot Henderson. No one's gonna be like, oh, Portland should take another guard because Scoot Henderson didn't work this year. Like,
Right.
you still with guards. I think especially as a GM, you buy yourself more time. Like because everybody kind of understands they're gonna take a while to work. With bigs, like for example, when Golden State took Wiseman, everybody could see within like a couple months, like Wiseman was not working. Like now we have like this is still a position of need. It's not working. It's probably never gonna work. We're probably gonna have to move off him. So it's like, I don't know. That's just my opinion on it, I think. I don't know. I just feel like if I could go Dillingham, Poole, Koulibaly, Kuzma, and Hartenstein, I feel like
Hartenstein's going to get a bag from a team like the Wizards, like that type.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, he'll get like 25 from a one good postseason.
and like it's not like cap space is a problem. Like that's not the issue at the moment. You could do like a stopgap with Hartenstein and give him like 2 years and maybe 20 a year or 15 a year.